One ordinary evening walk turned into the most terrifying night of my life. A stranger slowed his car, rolled down the window, and showed me a photo of my son in handcuffs. Then he whispered words no parent should ever hear. "He won't survive the night if you refuse." Before we start the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you never miss future stories like this one. My name is Clara Bennett. I was 62 years old, a retired librarian who had spent her whole life in the same quiet town. I liked my books, my garden, and my small circle of neighbors, but more than anything, I loved my son Andrew. He was 35 now, tall and restless, but in my eyes he was still the boy who once clung to my hand when we crossed Main Street. I had carried him through scraped knees, through debts he couldn't handle, and through sleepless nights when he wandered home far too late. Even when he disappointed me, I always told myself he would come around. He was all I had, and I was all he had. That evening, the sun was sinking behind the rooftops, leaving a thin orange glow across the quiet street. I had barely passed the corner bakery when a dark sedan rolled slowly to the curb beside me. For a second, I thought it was a stranger asking for directions, the sort of thing that often happened in our old town. But then the window slid down, and a man inside leaned toward me. His face was half in shadow, his voice low and steady. "Get in if you want to know the truth about Andrew." I froze where I stood. My heart hammered against my ribs. Before I could answer, he lifted a phone and turned the screen so I could see. My breath caught in my throat. There was Andrew, my Andrew. His hands locked in steel handcuffs, his face pale and bruised under harsh light. The photo had a glowing timestamp from that very evening. I shook my head, whispering that it couldn't be real, but the man's eyes narrowed. "He won't survive the night if you refuse me." The last word cut off sharply, but the meaning was clear. My knees nearly gave out under me. For a moment, the street lamps above seemed to flicker, and all I could hear was the pounding rush of blood in my ears. I wanted to shout for help, to run to the nearest police officer, but something in the man's calmness stopped me. "In those handcuffs," burned into my mind. I forced myself to speak, though my voice came out shaky. "Why should I trust you?" The man's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. He held up another photo, this one showing Andrew being pushed into a van by two men. The side of the van carried a faint painted number, half peeled off, but enough to send a chill down my back. "You want him alive?" the man said calmly. "Then listen. No police, no phone calls. Do exactly what we tell you." Before I could answer, he tossed something out of the window. It landed near my feet with a dull clatter. A cheap black burner phone. The screen lit up instantly with an incoming call. The man gave me one last look, his eyes sharp and unblinking. Then the sedan pulled away, vanishing down the street without a sound. I stood there trembling, staring at the phone on the ground. My hands refused to move at first. Picking it up felt like picking up a weapon aimed at my own son. But after a long moment, I bent down and lifted it. The phone buzzed again, demanding I answer. With shaking fingers, I pressed the button and lifted it to my ear. A different voice, calmer and colder, filled the line. "Walk to the next block. Do not look behind you. Do not go home. We are watching." I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sand. This was no random threat. They knew where I lived. They knew Andrew's name. They had his face in handcuffs. And now they had me. I clutched the burner phone so tightly it hurt my palm. The street that had always felt safe now looked strange, each shadow hiding eyes I couldn't see. My legs moved without thinking, carrying me toward the next block as the voice had ordered. Every step echoed too loud on the pavement. I glanced at the windows of the houses. Curtains drawn, doors shut, nobody to witness what was happening. The voice on the phone came back, even softer this time. "Good. Keep walking. In 2 minutes you will reach the old newsstand. Stop there." It wasn't a request. It was a command, measured and certain. My heart pounded so hard it felt like a drum in my ears. I wanted to hang up, to call the police, but I knew if Andrew was somewhere in danger and I misstepped, I might never. Warning. It was a game, and I was the piece they were moving. But the photo of Andrew's wrists in those handcuffs flashed in my mind again, and my resolve cracked. I pulled my card out, my fingers trembling so badly I almost dropped it. The machine hummed as it counted the bills. Each note that slid out felt like a piece of my fear. When I stuffed the cash into the bin, I noticed a faint sticker on the side of it, a courier company logo, partially peeled away. A small detail, but one I tucked into my memory. I walked away as told, my heart hammering, waiting for the next order, knowing I was sinking deeper into something dark. I moved away from the bench, forcing my legs to carry me even though every part of me wanted to collapse right there on the pavement. The burner phone buzzed again almost immediately, and when I answered, the same cold voice spoke, this time with a note of approval. "You did well. Keep going straight until you reach the hardware store." The thought of another order made my chest tighten. My voice shook as I whispered, "Please, I just need to hear Andrew's voice. If he's alive, let me speak to him." There was a pause, then a faint sound of shuffling. A recording came through the line, Andrew's voice, broken and weak. "Mom, do what they say. Please." Then silence. Tears blurred my eyes, but something felt off. Andrew had a way of calling me Ma whenever he was scared, a habit from childhood he never dropped. In that message, he had said Mom, plain and flat. My stomach twisted. Was it really him, or a recording cut from somewhere else? I couldn't be sure, and the doubt made the fear even heavier. The voice returned. "Inside the hardware store, buy duct tape, zip ties, and a roll of black rope. Pay in cash. Place them in a gray locker at the bus station 2 blocks away. We will collect it. No mistakes." The list chilled me. Why would they need things like that? It wasn't just about ransom. It was a warning, a hint of something darker. Still, I walked into the hardware store, my hands trembling as I gathered the items. The clerk, a young man with a friendly smile, tried to make small talk, but I kept my head couldn't see. Before leaving, I slid a small scrap of paper inside the bag, hidden under the rope. I had scribbled quickly with a pen from my purse. "You are being watched. Cameras. Plate 6KX. We know." I didn't know if it would rattle them, but I had to try. The phone buzzed again just as I stepped away. "Locker closed?" the voice asked. I answered yes, though my throat was dry. There was a pause, then a chuckle. "Good. You follow orders well. Maybe your son has a chance after all." My knees nearly gave out. I stumbled to the station wall and pressed against the cold brick, clutching the phone like it was both a lifeline and a curse. Each order was dragging me further into their plan, but I couldn't stop, not until I knew the truth about Andrew. The bus station air smelled of exhaust and wet concrete. My pulse thudded in my neck as I stepped back out onto the street, clutching the burner phone. I kept glancing at the faces around me. An old man reading a newspaper, a woman with a stroller, a boy tapping on his phone, wondering if any of them were part of the trap. The sky had turned a deep blue now, the first stars showing faintly. This was always the time of day when I would be in my kitchen making tea, waiting for Andrew to call. Instead, I was walking through my own town like a stranger, carrying someone else's orders. The phone buzzed again. I pressed it to my ear, my hand trembling. The voice was back, smooth and deliberate. "You're proving you can be trusted," it said. "Now we go to the next step. Walk north until you see the red sign of the closed diner. Do not run. Do not talk to anyone." I obeyed because I had no choice. Every step felt like it was pulling me further from safety. My head was buzzing, my stomach a knot. I wanted to call the police, to scream Andrew's name, but then I saw again in my mind the image of his face in those handcuffs. I couldn't risk it. Not yet. As I walked, I tried to think. The recording of Andrew's voice still echoed in my head. He had not called me Ma. That tiny change meant something, and the timestamp on the first photo had glowed so perfectly, almost too perfectly. Could it have been? "We will know when you've opened it." I straightened up slowly, clutching the envelope. The night felt heavier than before, pressing against my skin. Across the street, a man in a hoodie leaned against a lamppost, smoking. He wasn't looking at me, but something about the way he stood made me feel watched. I started walking again, keeping my eyes forward. The phone buzzed once more. "Remember," the voice said softly, "we see everything. If you go to the police, if you try anything clever, you will never hear Andrew's voice again." I hung up, my breath coming fast, but inside a small seed of determination was growing. They might be watching, but I was also watching them. The sticker on the trash bin, the number on the van, the slip of paper I had hidden in the bag, every detail was a thread. I just had to stay calm long enough to pull them all together. As I reached the edge of the street, the burner phone rang again, but this time I didn't answer right away. I stood under the cold light of the street lamp, staring at the flash drive in my hand. Whatever was on it would change everything. I stood there with the flash drive in my hand, my fingers damp with sweat. The street was nearly empty now. Only a delivery truck rumbled past before fading into the distance. The man in the hoodie across the street flicked his cigarette and disappeared around the corner. I told myself it was coincidence, but my gut whispered otherwise. I slipped the flash drive into my coat pocket and forced my legs to move. I couldn't go home. If they were telling the truth, my house might already be watched. There was only one place I could think of that had a computer and some privacy at this hour: the small library branch where I used to work. I still had a backdoor key from my retirement party because I volunteered there sometimes. The walk felt endless, the burner phone heavy in my other hand like a ticking bomb. As I walked, memories of Andrew as a boy came in flashes. His smile when he'd win at chess, the way he used to bring me wildflowers from the park. It was those memories that kept my feet moving. They also made me angrier. If this was all some cruel extortion plot, whoever was behind it had no idea who they were dealing with. When I reached the library, the building was dark and silent, smelling faintly of paint. "They say, please." I leaned forward, studying every frame. His voice was flat, as it had been on the phone, and again, he didn't call me Ma. The background behind him looked wrong too, a flicker of movement like a looping image. It looked like a still photo with him cut into it. I paused the video and rewound it. In one frame, his shadow moved, but his body didn't. That's when I knew. This wasn't a live hostage video, it was an edit. They had something old, maybe a photo, maybe a clip, and had built a lie around it. My heart raced with a mix of terror and relief. If Andrew wasn't actually with them, then where was he? Was he safe? The burner phone buzzed again, loud in the quiet library. I answered, forcing my voice steady. "I saw it," I said. "Good," the voice replied. "Now bring $8,000 to storage lot 14 on Delaney Road, midnight. Come alone. No phone, no police. This is your last chance." They hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at the silent phone. $8,000. I didn't have that much in cash ready, but I had savings, bonds I could cash, an emergency fund. The thought of handing it to them made my skin crawl. But now something inside me had shifted. The fear was still there, but it had hardened into focus. If Andrew wasn't with them, then they were bluffing. And if they were bluffing, I had a chance to outsmart them. I took a deep breath and began to plan. The flash drive would be evidence. The recording on the phone, the courier sticker, the number on the van, all of it was a trail. If I could get someone I trusted to see what was happening without tipping the criminals off, I might be able to catch them in their own game. My mind turned to one person who might help. Gregory, the night manager at the hardware store. He had known me for years. He wouldn't go to the police right away, but he had access to cameras and wasn't easily spooked. I grabbed the flash drive, stuffed it back into my pocket, and turned off the computer. The library silence pressed on me like a weight as I stepped back out into the night. The air smelled of rain now, and the street lights glowed like dim candles. Midnight was only a few hours away. As I locked the door behind me, their control. The hardware store sat at the far end of Maple Street, its neon sign buzzing faintly above the shuttered windows. Gregory, the night manager, was outside by the back door, smoking under the metal awning. He nearly dropped his cigarette when he saw me hurrying toward him with my hood pulled low. "Clara?" he asked, startled. "What are you doing out here at this hour?" I pushed the burner phone into his hands without answering, then showed him the flash drive. My voice shook as I told him everything from the moment the car had slowed beside me to the demands for cash at the storage lot. He listened without interrupting, his face growing paler by the minute. When I was finished, he stubbed out his cigarette and swore under his breath. "They've been running something like this," he muttered. "I heard about it on a forum. Using fake photos, stolen clips from old arrests, scaring families into handing over money. They change cars, use kids on bikes to collect cash. But it's dangerous, Clara. If they think you're onto them, they'll panic." I gripped his sleeve, desperate. "I don't care what happens to me. I just need to know Andrew is safe. If he really is, I'll face whatever comes. But I can't keep walking blind." Gregory pulled out his phone and scrolled quickly. "You said the van in that photo had a peeling number, and the trash bin had a courier sticker." He tapped the screen, showing me a message thread from a delivery group he belonged to. "There's a guy who complained last week about his van's number peeling off, and I know that courier company. They subcontract kids to do cash pickups. If I can get plate digits from the cameras, we might pin them down." He ushered me into the back office and pulled up the store's security feed. The grainy black and white footage showed me earlier that evening, buying the rope and zip ties. In the corner of one frame, a man in a hood leaned against the lamppost near the bus station lockers, just as I had seen. Gregory froze the image and zoomed in. The man's shoe had a distinct tear on the side patched with duct tape. "That's something," he muttered. "Small but distinctive." I clutched the desk for balance. Every piece mattered. "Can you keep a copy of this?" I asked. "If something happens to me, someone has to know." He nodded firmly. Though my throat burned with fear. "If I don't go, Andrew might pay the price. I have to see this through, but if you don't hear from me after 1 o'clock, send everything you've got to the police." The rain had grown heavier when I stepped back outside, splashing across the deserted street. I tightened my coat around me and whispered into the storm, "Hold on, Andrew, just hold on." As I walked toward Delaney Road, the burner phone buzzed again. This time I answered, forcing calm into my voice. "I have the money," I said, though I didn't. The voice on the other end gave a short, humorless laugh. "Good. At midnight you'll prove just how much you love your son." The hours between leaving Gregory's office and midnight stretched longer than any I had lived through. Every second seemed to scrape against my nerves. The rain didn't let up. It only grew harder, soaking through the edges of my coat as I walked the long road toward Delaney. Streetlights flickered, and puddles reflected them like broken glass. I had walked these streets 1,000 times before, but tonight they felt foreign, as if the town itself had turned against me. The burner phone stayed silent at first, and that silence was almost worse than the calls. It meant they were out there, watching, waiting, knowing exactly where I was while I had no idea where they might be. I kept telling myself, remember the details, remember the signs. The torn shoe, the courier sticker, the license plate digits Gregory had pulled up. All those pieces were small, but together they might save me. By the time I reached the edge of Delaney Road, the rain had eased to a drizzle. The air smelled of wet asphalt and oil. Storage Lot 14 sat at the far end, a long stretch of rusted gates and padlocked units, with a broken lamp flickering above the entrance. My breath came in short bursts. It was just past 11:30, and I knew if I arrived too early, I might look desperate, but waiting too long might make them suspicious. I ducked under a small awning by a shuttered repair shop and checked my watch. 11:37. I wiped the rain from my face and whispered to myself, just a little longer. That's when my own phone buzzed in my pocket. The recordings spun threats out of nothing. And I had nearly believed them. But I couldn't tell Andrew then. If I told him what was happening, he'd panic and run straight into danger. So I steadied my voice. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just call me when you finish work, all right?" When I hung up, I felt both stronger and weaker at the same time. Stronger because now I knew he was safe. Weaker because I had no excuse left to obey the people tormenting me. Yet I couldn't simply walk away. They had to be stopped, or they would prey on another mother, another family. At 11:55, I left the shelter of the awning and walked toward the storage lot. The burner phone buzzed as I approached. "Are you ready?" the voice asked. "Yes," I said, my tone firm. "Good. Walk to the far end, Unit 14. Place the money on the ground and step back 10 paces. Wait until we collect it. Any tricks, and you'll regret it." I slipped the phone back into my pocket. My hands were empty, but in my coat was the flash drive, the copied footage Gregory had given me, and the small recorder he had pressed into my hand before I left. The recorder was already running, every word from that call captured. The lot stretched before me, puddles glinting under the broken light. Shadows shifted near the far end. One tall figure, maybe two. I took a deep breath, my pulse hammering, and stepped through the gate. If I played this right, I could expose them. If I didn't, I might vanish into the night like the cash they had stolen from others. As I walked toward Unit 14, I told myself one thing again and again. They don't know Andrew is safe. That's my weapon. Don't let them see fear. Not now. The gate of the storage lot groaned as I pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of rust and damp cardboard. Rows of metal doors stretched into darkness, broken only by the flicker of a single overhead bulb. Water dripped from somewhere unseen, each splash echoing like a clock tick. My shoes scuffed on the wet concrete as I walked down the narrow lane toward Unit 14. The burner phone buzzed once in my pocket. I didn't take it out. I knew what they wanted me to do, and I needed my hands free. In my coat's inner pocket, the small recorder. "Ask for," I said. The tall one nodded once. "Put it down." I bent slowly and set a small canvas bag on the concrete. Inside were only a few real bills on top, with folded paper underneath to give it weight. Gregory had helped me put it together before I left. If these men snatched it and ran, at least I wouldn't lose everything. I stood and stepped back, just as instructed. My breath came in clouds in the cold air. I could hear the buzz of a faraway streetlight, the drip of water, the quiet squeak of a rat scuttling behind one of the units. No sound of cars, no sound of rescue. The shorter man crouched and unzipped the bag. His hands moved quickly, like he had done it 1,000 times. He flicked through the bills on top, then glanced at the tall one. "Looks good," he muttered. The tall man tilted his head, studying me. Even from under his hood I could see his eyes, pale and flat like marbles. "Where's your phone?" he asked. "In my bag," I said. "I did everything you asked." He took a slow step forward. "You're a good listener. But let me make something clear. If you try to play games with us, you'll never see your boy again. Do you understand?" I swallowed hard. "I understand." The shorter man zipped the bag shut and stood. "We should go," he muttered. "Cameras." The tall man ignored him. "Not yet. We need to make sure she's ready for the next step." "What next step?" I asked, forcing my voice not to shake. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "Proof of loyalty. We're going to give you an address. You'll go there tomorrow. Bring more cash, and maybe we'll let you talk to Andrew for real." I drew a slow breath. "I need to hear him first. Tonight. If you don't let me, you'll get nothing else." The tall man's smile faded. For a moment he said nothing. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. He pressed a button and a muffled voice came through. Andrew's voice again, weak and pleading. "Mom, please, do what they say." But as he held the phone out, I noticed something. The screen was dark. He wasn't playing a live call. It was a recording. My stomach twisted, but I didn't look away. "He doesn't sound right," I said. Sharper. "No, I want to see him. Now." The shorter man swore under his breath. "She's bluffing." The tall man spun back toward me. "Careful," he said, his voice now like a blade. "You're not in control here." "No," I said quietly, "but neither are you." For the first time that night, surprise flickered across his face. "What did you say?" I lifted my chin, though my heart pounded so hard it felt like it might break my ribs. "Andrew isn't with you. That video is old. That voice is a recording. I know it. I also know you've been using kids on bikes to pick up cash, and that van with the peeling number belongs to a subcontractor. You're bluffing." The shorter man took a step back, glancing at the shadows around us. "She's crazy," he muttered. "Let's just go." But the tall man stayed very still. "You're going to regret this," he said softly. I slipped my hand into my coat pocket and touched the recorder, making sure the light was still on. "Maybe," I said, "but not tonight." At that moment, a car engine started somewhere behind the storage units. Headlights flared briefly against the metal doors. The tall man's head snapped toward it. "We're done," he barked at his partner. "Get the bag. Move." The shorter man grabbed the bag of decoy cash and bolted toward the back exit. The tall man lingered just a heartbeat longer, staring at me with those pale eyes, then turned and vanished into the darkness after him. I stood there trembling, rain dripping from my hood, my breath coming in ragged bursts. The burner phone buzzed again in my pocket, but I didn't answer. I had the recorder, I had the flash drive, and I had just seen the faces of at least 2 of them. It wasn't enough to stop them yet, but it was a start. In the distance, I saw a faint glow through the rain, the headlights of another car pulling slowly into the lot. My pulse spiked. For a second, I thought they had come back. But then the driver's door opened and Gregory stepped out, holding his phone like a weapon. Behind him, I saw 2 other figures, one of them the diner owner he had mentioned, carrying a small camera rig. They jogged toward me, their faces tense. Long, slow breath, and tried to steady myself. I had to. They think they control me, but now I've seen them. My voice cracked, but I forced it to stay firm. 2 of them. The tall one with pale eyes. The other one, smaller, with a torn shoe and a courier sticker on his bag. They've been playing the same trick on families over and over. The diner owner, a wiry man named Tom, nodded grimly. "Gregory sent me the stills. My cameras caught their van pulling out of this lot twice last week around the same time. Plate starts with 6KX. I've already pulled the files." He lifted a small hard drive like it was a trophy. "It's all here." I felt something in me loosen, relief mixed with steel. "We can stop them," I whispered. "We can really stop them." Gregory guided me back toward his car parked near the gate. The engine of another vehicle hummed somewhere in the distance, then faded. "We should go," he said. "They might circle back to see if you're still here." We piled into Gregory's car, the heater blasting warm air that smelled faintly of coffee. My fingers trembled as I pulled the burner phone from my pocket. It was still buzzing, their number flashing like a warning. Gregory reached over and switched it off. "Not yet," he said. "They'll think you're on the way home." I sat back, staring at my wet hands. "Andrew called me," I said quietly. "He's safe. He's at work. He didn't even know any of this was happening." Gregory exhaled slowly. Then this was a full con from the start. They scrape social media for arrests, old mugshots, protests, anything they can twist into a fake hostage situation. They target parents who'll pay without question. You're not the first. "That's why we have to end it," I said, my voice sharpening. "If I walk away now, they'll just find another mother, another son." Tom leaned forward from the back seat. "I can set up a sting," he said. "We know their pattern now. If you let them think you're still following orders, we can bait them into showing up with enough evidence to get the police involved. But it has to be tight. One wrong move and they'll vanish." Gregory nodded. "He's right. These guys are ghosts. They change numbers, vehicles, even their accents." "You'll stay at my sister's place out of town. No one there knows you." I shook my head. "If I disappear, they'll know something's wrong. They'll vanish before we can trap them." Tom leaned forward again. "Then you'll play your part. You'll answer their next call like nothing has changed. You'll agree to the next step. and we'll be ready before you even arrive. The police will have what they need." "But Clara," his eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, "you can't improvise once it starts. No hero moves, just the script." I felt a strange calm settle over me as he spoke. All night I had been reacting, stumbling from one order to the next. Now, for the first time, there was a plan. It was dangerous, but it was a plan. "I'll do it," I said quietly. "I'll be their bait." Gregory's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. "Then we start now. Tell me everything you noticed about them. Their clothes, their voices, their shoes, any tattoos, rings, scars." As the car rolled along, I spoke in a low, steady voice, replaying every detail. The tall man's pale eyes, his ring glinting under the storage lot's light. The shorter man's patched shoe. The way he hesitated whenever I spoke, as if he wasn't sure what to say. The van's peeling number, the courier sticker on the trash bin. The flicker of movement behind Andrew in the video, like a looped image. Gregory typed it all into his phone while Tom nodded along. When I finished, Tom handed me a small earpiece. "When you go back out there, you'll wear this. We'll hear everything. If they move on you, we'll be seconds behind. But you have to keep them talking long enough for us to pin their location." I held the earpiece in my palm. It felt heavier than it should. "If they see it, they won't," Tom said firmly. "It's tiny, and by then we'll already be closing in." Gregory pulled the car over in front of a darkened cafe and turned to look at me. "Clara, you're brave, but bravery without caution can get you hurt. This is the part where you let us handle the risk. You just do what you've been doing. Buy time." I met his eyes. "I've been buying time all night." It was impossible. The night wasn't over. The burner phone sat on the table, dark and silent, but it might ring at any second. I stared at it, my heart thudding. When it finally buzzed, the sound seemed to fill the entire house. I reached for it, my hand steady now, my mind already rehearsing the lines I'd use. They still thought they had me cornered. They still thought Andrew was theirs. But in the soft glow of the farmhouse lamp, with the flash drive and the recorder beside me, I felt something I hadn't felt all night: control. I pressed answer, lifted the phone to my ear, and said in the calmest voice I could manage, "I'm ready." The line was silent for a few seconds after I said those words. I could hear faint static, like someone was breathing near the receiver but choosing not to speak. My heart pounded harder with each second of that silence until finally the voice returned. It wasn't the shorter man, and it wasn't exactly the tall one's voice either. It was someone else this time, low and sharp. The tone clipped like he was reading from a script. "You did well," the man said, "but the game isn't finished. The money you left was not enough. We want more. $8,000 cash by tomorrow night. We'll send the location when it's time." I forced my breath to stay calm, though every word made my skin prickle. "I can get it," I said quietly, "but I need to hear Andrew again. I need to know he's alive." The voice gave a small chuckle, though it was humorless. "You're in no place to make demands. If you want him to live, you'll do as you're told." I pressed my lips together, gripping the phone tighter. This was where most people would break, I knew. This was the moment they counted on, the fear boiling over, the blind obedience that would keep their scam alive. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had Gregory, I had Tom, I had evidence. I had Andrew himself safe and well, and because of all that, I had leverage, even if they didn't know it. "All right," I whispered. "Tomorrow night. Just tell me where." The voice was silent for a moment, then said, "You'll receive instructions tomorrow morning. Keep your phone close, and remember, if you call the police, Andrew will disappear forever." The line went dead. I set the phone down on the table and Their clothes were damp from the mist outside, but their eyes were sharp, alert. Gregory spread his laptop open on the kitchen table. "We've been up all night," he said, "and we've got something." Tom plugged in the hard drive. "The diner cameras picked up the van again around midnight last Tuesday. Same peeling numbers, same dark paint. And look here." He zoomed in on the footage. The tall man was stepping out of the driver's side, hood pulled back just enough to reveal his face. Grainy, yes, but distinct. A square jaw, thin scar across the chin. The shorter man followed, his cap tilted low, but his torn shoe was visible. "That's enough for identification if we can get police to take it seriously," Tom said. Gregory clicked to another file. "And here's more. Remember the courier sticker you noticed on the trash bin? I checked. That company went bankrupt 6 months ago. These guys must have picked up leftover bins or decals to make it look ordinary. Sloppy." I leaned forward, staring at the frozen images. Each detail confirmed what I already knew. They weren't geniuses. They were scavengers, weaving lies out of scraps, counting on fear to cover their mistakes. "So what's next?" I asked. Gregory closed the laptop halfway and looked me in the eye. "The next step is dangerous. They'll give you another location tonight. We'll be ready. You'll go, just like before, but this time you won't be alone. You'll wear the earpiece Tom gave you. We'll follow at a distance. And when they make their move, we'll have everything recorded from multiple angles." "And the police?" I asked. "They won't act without stronger proof," Gregory said grimly. "Too many people have already come in with stories like this. They call it emotional scams. Without faces, without footage, they can't arrest anyone. That's why we need them to show up tonight and take the bait." I nodded slowly. "Then I'll give them exactly what they want." The day crawled by in the farmhouse. I tried to rest, but my mind wouldn't quiet. I thought of Andrew, safe at his job, oblivious to the war his mother was fighting for him. I drafted texts to him 12 times, but each one I deleted. If he knew, he'd run straight into danger. Better he stayed unaware until it was over. At 3 in the afternoon, the burner phone buzzed again. My pulse spiked. Memory. Back entrance, 2 windows, 1 broken light in the parking lot. They'll expect you to use the front. We'll be positioned behind the dumpsters, cameras ready. Gregory pulled out a duffel bag and opened it to reveal the decoy money again, this time packed more carefully, real bills layered thick enough on top to look convincing, paper filler beneath. They won't notice until later, and by then we'll have what we need. I listened, nodded, rehearsed my lines, and forced myself to stay steady. My role was simple. Walk in, set the bag down, stall them long enough for Gregory and Tom to capture the footage. But deep down, I knew it wasn't simple at all. They'd be watching for hesitation, for fear, for any sign that I was lying. If I slipped even once, it could all fall apart. As the clock ticked toward midnight, I stood in front of the farmhouse mirror, my reflection pale and lined. I adjusted the small earpiece in my ear, invisible beneath my hair. "You're not just doing this for Andrew," I whispered to myself. "You're doing this for everyone they've hurt." Gregory drove us in silence, Tom in the back seat with his equipment ready. The road to Harrow was empty, the mist thickening into fog that curled low over the ground. When we reached the edge of the diner lot, Gregory parked in the shadows. "From here, you walk alone," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes told me he hated every second of it. I opened the door, the night air biting against my skin. The diner loomed ahead, its neon sign long dead, windows boarded up, paint peeling. A single flickering lamp cast long shadows across the cracked asphalt of the lot. My shoes crunched on gravel as I walked forward, the bag heavy in my hand. In my ear, Tom's voice crackled softly. "We see you. 2 figures near the side wall, 1 tall, 1 short, same as before." I forced my breath to stay steady and kept walking. Inside the diner, darkness pressed against the windows. My pulse raced. I stopped in front of the door and waited. The burner phone buzzed again. I answered. "Go inside," the clipped voice said. I looked at the diner door, its glass streaked with grime, and felt every muscle in my body tense. But I pushed it open and stepped into the dark. The door slammed shut behind me. Tom's whisper crackled faintly. "We still see them outside. Stay calm. We're here." I nodded slightly, though they couldn't see me. A voice floated from the shadows of the far corner, low and familiar, the tall man with the pale eyes. "You came. I wasn't sure you had it in you." My throat tightened. I forced myself to stay steady. "I brought the money," I said, lifting the bag just enough for him to see. "Just like you asked." From the darkness he stepped forward. His hood was pushed back this time, his face more visible than before. The scar along his chin glistened faintly in the dim light. Behind him, the shorter man appeared, cap low, his patched shoe scuffing across the floor. They both looked calmer than I expected, like this was a routine, just another night for them. "Put it down," the tall man ordered. I knelt slowly, placing the bag on the cracked linoleum near the counter. My hands trembled, but I kept my head high. The shorter man moved quickly, crouching to unzip the bag. His fingers flicked through the bills on top. He gave a sharp nod. "It's good." The tall man's pale eyes fixed on me. "You've proven yourself. You follow orders. You don't ask too many questions." He stepped closer, his voice dropping into a colder register. "That means we can trust you for more. And if you keep doing what we say, maybe your son will walk away from this with his life." I forced my breath to steady. I need to talk to him. I need proof. His lips curled into a smirk. He pulled out a phone, pressing a button. Once again, Andrew's weak voice echoed through the room. "Mom, please, do what they say." But now I was ready. My anger burned hotter than my fear. "That's not him. That's a recording." The tall man's smirk faltered. "Excuse me?" "He's not with you. I know it," I said, my voice steady. "He called me earlier. He's safe. He's at work. You've been lying to me all along." The shorter man stiffened, glancing nervously at his partner. "She's bluffing." But I saw the flicker in the tall man's eyes, a quick flash of uncertainty. Hissed, "Now you'll regret opening your mouth." He reached into his jacket, and for one terrifying second I thought he was going to pull out a weapon. My heart slammed against my ribs. In my ear, Tom's voice sharpened. "We're moving in. Hold your ground." The tall man didn't pull a gun. He pulled a heavy flashlight, clicking it on and shining it straight in my face. The beam blinded me, searing my eyes. "Stay where you are," he growled. Footsteps pounded outside. I heard Gregory shout, "Stop! Drop the bag!" The sound of a scuffle followed, grunts, a yell, the thud of something heavy hitting the ground. The shorter man cursed loudly. The tall man whipped his head toward the noise. In that split second, I acted. I shoved forward, slamming my shoulder into his chest. He stumbled back, crashing into one of the overturned chairs. The flashlight clattered across the floor. "Gregory!" I screamed. "He's in here!" The door burst open. Gregory rushed inside, Tom right behind him, both holding their phones high to capture everything. The tall man scrambled to his feet, eyes wide now, the pale marble calmness shattered. "You're done," Gregory barked, his voice like iron. "We've got your faces, your van, your voices, everything." The tall man's gaze darted from Gregory to Tom to me. His jaw clenched. He turned and bolted for the back door. "Go!" Gregory shouted, chasing after him. Tom stayed behind with me, keeping his phone trained on the chaos. I staggered to the counter, my hands shaking, my breath ragged. The shorter man was on the ground outside, Gregory's knee pressed against his back, the decoy money spilling across the wet pavement. He shouted and struggled, but Gregory held firm. Inside, the tall man slammed into the back door, throwing it open. For a moment, I thought he'd escape, but headlights blazed across the lot, and two more figures stepped out from the shadows, local volunteers Gregory had quietly called in. They blocked the path, cameras rolling, their bodies solid walls. The tall man froze, his chest heaving. His pale eyes darted wildly. Then, with a guttural roar, he shoved past one of them, sprinting into the night. The others gave chase, their voice chosen. His eyes flickered, uncertainty creeping in. He looked away, muttering under his breath, but Tom caught every word on tape. In my ear, the line buzzed. Tom had switched channels. "Clara, you did it. We've got him on video, we've got the van, we've got the money. This is enough." I exhaled shakily, tears stinging my eyes. The night wasn't over. The tall man was still out there, but the balance had shifted. They weren't faceless anymore. They weren't untouchable, and I was no longer alone in the dark. As dawn crept closer, painting the clouds with faint silver, I realized something else. They had taken my fear and tried to weaponize it, but in the end, that fear had become my strength, because I had turned it back on them, and this was only the beginning. The sirens came slow, distant at first, then louder, echoing off the cracked walls of the abandoned diner. Red and blue lights swept across the wet pavement like restless ghosts. Gregory had already dialed his contact at the police station before we'd even entered the diner, feeding them just enough information to get a patrol car moving. Now that the shorter man was on the ground, zip-tied with his own stolen goods spilling out of the decoy bag, the reality of what we had done began to settle over me. I leaned against the counter, my hands still trembling but steadier than they'd been in hours. Tom stayed at my side, his camera still rolling even as he checked on me. "Keep breathing," he said softly. "You're okay. It's almost over." But I knew it wasn't over. The tall man was still out there, pale eyes burning into my memory. He'd seen my face in full light now, had heard my voice accuse him. He knew I wasn't the helpless mother he'd expected. That made him dangerous in a new way. Outside, Gregory hauled the shorter man to his feet and marched him toward the flashing lights. The man kept his head low, but his voice rose into curses and threats. "You don't know who you're messing with. He'll come back. He'll come for her." I stepped outside, the cold air slapping my wet face awake. The parking lot glistened under the spinning lights. 2 officers were getting out of their cruiser, hands hovering near their holsters but not yet drawing. Gregory met them halfway, speaking fast, pointing to the back door. "Scar on his chin, pale eyes, drives that van. He's the one orchestrating this." The officer glanced at the van. "If this checks out, we'll put out a bolo, but for now, this one's coming with us." The shorter man jerked his head toward me, his mouth twisting. "She's lying. We didn't do anything. She's crazy." I stepped forward, my voice stronger than I expected. "You threatened my son. You sent me fake photos. You tried to take my money. We have everything recorded." The officer's eyebrows rose slightly, but she didn't doubt me. She nodded toward Tom's camera. "We'll need that footage, all of it." "You'll have it," Tom said. The officers led the shorter man toward the cruiser. He twisted once, his eyes meeting mine. "He's not going to stop," he muttered. "He never stops." A chill went through me, but I stood my ground. "Neither will I," I whispered back. Gregory guided me away from the lights as the officers began searching the van. "You're safe for now," he said quietly. "But you're right, it's not over. We have to be smart about the next move. He knows your name. He knows you fought back." I took a deep breath, watching the officers pull boxes from the van. Old burner phones, stacks of printed photos, envelopes stuffed with cash. Evidence of dozens of families like mine. Each piece was another life they had tried to break. The young officer came back over to us. "This is more than a simple scam," she said, holding up one of the boxes. "This is organized. We'll have detectives on it by morning." She glanced at me. "You've been through a lot tonight, ma'am. We'll need a full statement." I nodded. "You'll get it. Everything." Tom turned his camera off at last, slipping it into his bag. "We've got enough to bury them," he muttered. "But that tall one, he's smart. He'll try to disappear." I stared out at the dark road beyond the diner. "Let him run," I said softly. "He left footprints tonight. We just have to follow them." By the time we finished at the scene, dawn was stretching pale fingers across the horizon. The officers drove away with the van and the shorter man, promising to send a detective. "Then we make sure he can't get close. You're not alone anymore. We have evidence. We have police attention. And most importantly, we know his face." Tom sat at the table scrolling through the footage on his laptop. "You were brilliant in there," he said without looking up. "Kept him talking, got him angry. That's why he slipped. We have his voice clean, his face half exposed. They can run facial recognition on that scar and those eyes." I took a sip of coffee, my hands steadying. "This isn't just about me anymore," I said. It's about all those other families, all those envelopes they found in the van. Gregory nodded. And now the police will see it's bigger than one complaint. They'll have to act. The burner phone sat on the table between us, dark and silent. We all stared at it. "What if he calls again?" Tom asked. I looked at the phone, then back at them. "Then I'll answer. I'll keep him talking. Every word he says is another nail in his coffin." Gregory frowned. "Clara, you don't have to do that anymore. Let the police handle it." But I shook my head. "He thinks I'm scared. He thinks he broke me. He needs to see that he didn't. That's the only way to end this." Tom closed the laptop and met my eyes. "If you're going to keep talking to him, then we'll be ready every time. He won't get another step ahead of you." The farmhouse fell quiet. Outside, birds began to chirp, the sound almost too normal after the night we'd had. I thought of Andrew again, safe and unaware. For the first time in hours, I let myself smile a little. "They tried to make me a victim," I said softly. "They made me a witness instead." Gregory reached out and squeezed my shoulder. "And soon, you'll be the reason they're caught." I nodded slowly, my fingers curling around the coffee mug. "Soon," I whispered. "Very soon." The farmhouse was still, quiet in that strange way country homes become at dawn. The air smelled faintly of wet earth drifting in through the open window, the soft rustle of leaves mixing with the call of morning birds. Yet despite the calm, none of us could relax. We sat around the kitchen table, the burner phone lying between us like a live grenade. Its dark screen been all night. Every detail of the tall man's face played again and again in my memory. His pale eyes, his scar, the way his voice dropped lower when he thought he was in control. I knew he was still out there, and I knew he was angry. At 9:12 a.m., the phone buzzed. The sound cut through the farmhouse like a blade. All three of us froze. "Answer it," Tom urged. I picked it up, pressing it to my ear with hands that no longer shook. "Yes?" I said. The tall man's voice came through, low and sharp. "You think you won last night?" He didn't sound calm this time. He sounded like someone trying to control his temper. "You humiliated me. You think handing over one of my men means anything? He'll be out before you finish your morning tea." I closed my eyes, keeping my voice even. "You're lying. They've got your van. They've got your money. They've got your face." Silence, then a sharp hiss of breath. "You think you're smart, but you've got no idea who I am. You've got no idea what I can do." Tom scribbled notes furiously, mouthing to me, "Keep him talking." "You've been running this game for a long time," I said. "You pick scared mothers, desperate fathers. You scrape photos from the internet. You cut voices from old recordings. But you slipped last night. You showed yourself." He laughed, but the sound was hollow. "And what? You'll go to the police? They won't protect you. They'll take their evidence, make promises, and I'll still be out here, watching, waiting." Gregory leaned in close to me, whispering so softly only I could hear. "Push him. Make him angry enough to reveal something." I drew a breath. "You're already running. You lost one of your men. You left your van behind. You left your face on a dozen cameras. You're not in control anymore. I am." The line went dead. We stared at the phone in silence, the click of disconnection echoing in the room. Tom cursed under his breath. "He's rattled. That's good. He'll make mistakes now." But Gregory's brow furrowed. "It's also dangerous. A cornered man lashes out. We need to prepare for that." The day passed in tense silence. Gregory made calls. "Have a choice," he said smoothly. "You think the police will keep you safe? You think your friends will stand in my way? You saw what happened last night. I was right there, in front of you, and I could have ended it if I wanted to." His tone dropped lower. "You think about that, Clara. Midnight, or the next knock on your door will be me." The line clicked dead again. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to stay calm. "He knows my name," I whispered. "He knows where I live." Gregory slammed his fist on the table. "That's it. We're not waiting for him to pick the place anymore. We turn the tables." Tom looked up sharply. "How?" Gregory leaned over the table, his eyes locked on mine. "We use you as bait again, but this time we set the stage. A location of our choosing, cameras hidden everywhere, police already in place. He wants a meeting? Fine. We'll give him one he won't walk away from." I felt a shiver crawl up my spine, but I nodded. "Do it. Whatever it takes. I'm not hiding anymore." The next hours were a blur of planning. Gregory called in favors, an old friend who worked night shifts at the train depot, another who had keys to a warehouse long out of use. Tom mapped out camera placements, making sure every angle would be covered. The detective promised plainclothes officers would be stationed nearby, ready to move the moment we had the tall man in the open. And me? My role stayed the same. I would walk in, play the frightened mother once again, and keep him talking until the trap snapped shut. By 11 p.m., we were ready. The warehouse loomed large and silent, its windows dark, its interior lit only by the faint glow of hidden cameras. Gregory pressed the earpiece back into my hand. "Stay calm," he said. "We'll be right there. He won't touch you." I slipped it in, nodded, and stepped into the vast echoing space. My footsteps sounded too loud, my breath too fast. The bag of decoy cash felt heavier than it should. At 11:57, the burner phone buzzed. I answered. "I'm here," I said. "I see you," the tall man's voice replied. The ground he stood on. "You're brave," he said, his voice calm again, too calm. "But bravery doesn't save you. Money does, and you're about to learn that lesson." I took a step closer instead of back. "No, you're the one about to learn." He stopped. His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" I tilted my head, letting my voice sharpen. "I know who you are now. I know your face, your voice, your scar. I know the van you drive and the games you play. And every word tonight is being recorded." For the first time, his calm cracked. His pale eyes widened, flickering toward the corners of the warehouse as if he sensed the hidden cameras. His jaw clenched. "You," he began, but before he could finish, the echo of heavy footsteps filled the warehouse. Gregory, Tom, and 3 plainclothes officers stepped from the shadows, their flashlights and cameras pointed straight at him. Red dots from hidden laser sights swept across his chest. The detective's voice rang out, firm and clear. "It's over. You're done." The tall man spun, eyes darting, searching for an escape. But every door was covered, every path blocked. He let out a guttural roar, throwing the bag of decoy cash across the floor, bills scattering in the air. "This isn't finished," he shouted, his voice breaking. "I never lose." But as officers closed in, hands locking on his arms, dragging him to the ground, his words lost all their weight. He wasn't untouchable anymore. He was just a man, shackled by his own arrogance, caught by the trail he had left behind. I stood frozen, my breath ragged, my knees trembling. And then, slowly, I walked forward. I stopped a few feet from him as he knelt in cuffs, his pale eyes glaring up at me. My voice came out steady, low and certain. "You lost the moment you chose me," I told him. "You thought fear would break me, but fear made me stronger. And now you'll never do this to another family again." His glare faltered. For a heartbeat, I saw something else in his eyes, not anger, not control, but the faintest flicker of defeat. The officers hauled him to his feet and led him toward the waiting cars. The warehouse grew quiet again, the echoes fading. Gregory touched my shoulder gently. "Even when your voice shakes, even when your hands tremble. If you were in my place that night, alone, with a stranger demanding everything, what would you have done? Would you have followed the orders or stood your ground? Share your thoughts in the comments because your voice matters more than you know. And if this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who might need courage, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of one simple truth. No matter how dark the night, no matter how strong the fear, Light always finds a way.